So here we are, Kimio Sea of Startups, and this time we are not in a studio and not with the perfect acoustics, but smack in the middle of a room in Bangkok, doing it live, and it's exciting. It's what we call it Bootstrap podcasting, taking it to the next level with this whole podcasting journey. I think this is what real looks like, stripping everything off and just really focusing on what we're trying to create and what we're trying to put out there. And today I'm joined by someone who has navigated both corporate bureaucracy and founder chaos. And he's survived it all and lived to tell the tale. Pavel Veselovsky isn't just another strategist. He's one of the rare few who actually knows how innovation moves inside the machine and how not to get eaten alive by it. He survived. So we in this exciting one, this real and raw one, we talk zombie projects, founder fears, and how Southeast Asia is rewriting the corporate VC playbook, not copying it. It's sharp, it's personal, and yes, that's just a bit of a spicy food in it. It goes psst. So, if you've ever wondered whether corporate venture capital is a golden bridge or a gilded cage, this one's for you. Let's go. Okay, I am with Pavel Veselovsky, a good friend of mine and a seasoned corporate venture strategist. Today, we are doing something different. We are live in Bangkok. First time doing it ever live. And so we're kind of in the middle of a room and we're doing bootstrap podcasting. So what that means is everything is self-funded, self set up, and now we're here. And so when you see us, just a heads up though, when you're looking at us, we're actually speaking to each other because we're in the room number one, number two. We're trying to have a conversation to make it more personable. You see our eyes moving to each other just to talk. It's to have a more authentic conversation like now, right? See, check. Okay. So Pavel Veselovsky, one of the most insightful people I know when it comes to understanding how big corporates actually think about innovation. Now, just some background story though. Pavel and I first met at Slash Penang back in May this year. And let me tell you, nothing beats bonding over scrumptious Nyonya food while debating, whether Thai banks or Singaporean GLCs have better venture strategies. And you know what's funnier is because when someone who has been so kind enough to say yes to do this bootstrapping podcast, you really can't say no. You just can't. But we're in for a good conversation that's coming up in a bit. And one thing about this is that what made it even more fun was discovering that we are both PwC alumni, and that's something about that shared experience of navigating corporate innovation from the inside that just clicks. And we have more fascinating conversations since then. And I knew I had to get him on the show. One thing that doesn't leave me is that phase when Pavel was having the really spicy Nyonya food, and I can't erase that off my memory from Penang. I don't know why he's not laughing, but yeah, kidding. So anyway, let's get this started. Pavel, how are you feeling today?
Hello everyone. Thanks for having me here. I'm really excited to be here and King, welcome to Bangkok. So long time no see since we met first time in Penang during Slash D. It was a really incredible conference and food is spicy, weather is hot in Bangkok and innovation is more hotter. And discovering we were both PwC alumni was such a great moment. We had a lot of mutual things to discuss. And today I'm feeling really, really energized to discuss and share my experience and ready to deep dive to this wonderful topic.
We are going to get into some spicy territory today. And given that we're in Bangkok, like what Pavel said, It's going to get even spicier. And before we jump in, let me set the stage for our listeners. We are talking about corporate venture capital, essentially where big companies invest in startups. And this isn't some niche Silicon Valley trend anymore. We are talking about nearly one third of all ventures backed company globally having at least one corporate investor. In C specifically, we are seeing an absolute explosion of CVC activity, especially here in Thailand, where we are recording today. Pavel, we've been on both sides of this equation, inside the corporate machine at PwC, and now doing your own thing, now advising startups on how to navigate these relationships. And so let's start with the fundamentals about what people are getting wrong.
Could you please share maybe a little, maybe a question or a particular situation
Oh, sorry.
to deep dive?
But, okay, so here's what fascinates me, right? I think this connects to software eating the world. Everyone assumes corporate VCs are just slow, bureaucratic versions of Sand Hill Road. But you've seen inside both worlds. What's the real difference in how these entities actually think?
So when I always say that when we are talking about like a general venture capital, founders just have to have only one yes. So if they have a yes from a particular venture fund or an angel investor, so that's a way to success. And vice versa, on the other hand, in a corporate world, in case of an internal innovator or external startup, want to agree on a pilot project, some meaningful collaboration with the top managers, it's just one no from legal security or board member, just one no that could lead to unsuccess. So one yes versus one no.
Wow. So it's pretty much a 50-50 then. So you're saying that, you're talking about speed and disruption. Traditional VCs live in that world. And you're optimizing at 3-10 times returns with a fun timeline. It's pure financial velocity. And like you said, you guys are playing a completely different game. And
I just trying to highlight the difference between like a general traditional venture capital
okay.
when a founders pitching venture funds and spending a lot of time to pursue, and if they have only one yes, like I believe in your idea, so and they got funded, so just one yes can open the way to success. And in corporate world, so different, it's work differently. So only one no from a person from corporate side, like from cybersecurity department, IT department, or procurement department could stop the POC or could end up the cooperation with.
Great. Okay, got it now. So in a way, to a certain extent, what I'm hearing is that it's pretty much defensive innovation versus offensive disruption. That right? Or are we on the same line? And honestly, it reminds me that what we have seen with companies with Google and Apple, they didn't just build everything in the house. Like I said, Google Ventures has invested in everything from Uber to 23andMe. But here's my question: does that defensive mindset actually work, or does it create corporate zombies that are too slow to innovate? Because we were saying earlier, like the one yes and one no. How does that play out?
So yeah, it's a very interesting question, especially in terms of how corporate VCs allocate budget for innovation department. Some of corporates look very much on their revenue is under pressure in their operation, and which market segments they want to target currently or in the future, or which divisions have like fresh road for innovation activities. So, and they every time they look how much it will cost to defend their current revenue, or how much cost to defend that revenue under pressure. So that could define the portfolio of innovation projects for the next year, in other 3 years. So, and using this, how to say, let it be historical performance data, corporates can establish how much they gonna invest in innovation. So, and that companies that you mentioned, so they for sure implement the same approach.
Ah, that's interesting. So the difference that we are looking at is between reacting from fear versus acting from vision. Is that right? Is that what you're essentially saying?
And yes and no. Yes and no. So we discussed previously before recording. So this stuff about corporate zombies. So I really love these metaphors, corporate zombies. I love that phrase. So because sometimes it's easy to start funding some initiative, but it's harder to stop funding.
It's harder to stop funding.
Harder sometimes it's stop
Oh,
to stop funding because we spent so much money. So we've been funding these particular initiatives for like 5 years, and it could be not easy to
right.
say, oh, it's not viable anymore. So the market has rapidly changed, so we do not need this initiative anymore, and so on and so forth. So sometimes these projects become like corporate zombies.
Ah, okay. Now I see it now. Oh, because that's actually a quite new insight for me because I've not really see that. But now that you put it in perspective, whereby corporates are like just literally doing this, so that kind of makes sense now that there will be corporate zombies. So moving on from there, the best corporate VCs I've seen aren't scared of being disrupted, and they're excited about being part of that disruption. And let's tackle that elephant in the room: speed. Every founder that I know has this story. Oh God, this corporate investor took 6 months to decide and then wanted to control everything. Given that it's hard to stop funding, right? Is this still true, or this is just outdated Silicon Valley bias, or is it relevant even in Southeast Asia based on your experience?
Great that you mentioned that, like Silicon Valley bias. I had so many conversations with great innovators, like from Europe, Africa, Southeast Asia, and sometimes they have their own way to be innovative.
Okay.
So necessary to copy Silicon Valley practices, not necessarily to copy, to clone, to make copycats. And they really made a great ecosystem that really work. Corporate VC is changing. During my time running innovation programs, we dedicated particular funds and trying to make the process super fast, super lean, and startup have a make fit with our portfolio, with our strategy. We always say yes to make a POC, to make a quick decision in terms of go or no go with this technology or with that technology. The crucial stuff is a value proposition, also value proposition for startups. So why companies should choose your corporation and not your competitor. So, and that's a really interesting question. So, how to make um, your brand really attractive for founders, for talent in general? So, that's another really big question.
Nice. And that's such an important distinction that you have made because I hate to say it, but I'm just going to throw in one life nugget here. It's like the difference between getting married and building a life together. One can happen so quickly, right? The other is a longer process. And honestly, this reminds me of how Amazon operates. They'll move fast on strategic investments, but integrating those technologies into their core platform is a very methodical, long-term process. Seems like what you're trying to say, is it right?
Yeah, the best practices show that companies should be really agile and in terms of how to work with startups, how to make a decision, and actually what I did at PwC with our clients and for internal. So my role was very similar to like a connector, to a facilitator between board leaders, their speed and their agenda, and founder speed, and how to synchronize and how to connect like agility, super agility, and corporate world is a super hard. Not easy, yeah, and we so it could sounds like very simple right now, but we implement like different approach is agile to holistic methodology with 100,000 of different artifacts, how to manage all of this. So not really an easy task. That's why there are not so many actually companies in the world that really succeed in corporate innovation because it's really hard.
So let's go to founders first. And now that I think you're doing something on your own, I think you could empathize more from that perspective as well. Because I think there are some deep misconceptions here that are costing people opportunities. Let's get real about founder psychology for a moment. I've seen brilliant founders turn down corporate money because they're terrified of losing independence. I think this is playing out pretty much in the AI world right now, where Mark Zuckerberg is trying to buy over some open AI engineers, and no one wants that. Or they think that taking money from one big player will block them from working with competitors. Are these fears rational, or are we dealing with startup urban legends here?
Brought up very sensitive question. actually, um, there are cases you can read on a Forbes or on other prominent media. So about how to say not ethical questions. On the other hand, from my experience, it's most of the time a myth and like a biased approach. So from my side, it's a really myth that Big Brother will steal your idea,
Oh,
copy, and
okay.
make the same product with
Right.
their own resources. No. Most of the time, the corporates not capable to do the same
Okay.
because like so they can spend 1 year discussing which color of the bump should be,
I got
etc., etc.
right.
It's so from my side, from my point of view, is really a myth that corporates will easily hijack idea and make the same. So in real life, founders should rely on the corporate process.
Okay.
So and build trustworthy relationships with innovation managers, with business unit leaders, and that's a two-way road. So corporates also struggle. A startup can steal their internal data, but there is a lot of stories around this topic, and some of them are like horror stories. But if both sides make everything properly, so that should reduce risk for the both sides significantly. And the end of the day, the goal is to make mutually beneficial projects, mutually beneficial opportunities. So that's why, like, if there is no trust, how to make it?
And trust. We're back to the topic of trust again and again. Last week we talked about trust as well, and this week is about corporates and founders. And I think what I'm hearing as well, you're saying that it's hard to have corporates to copy startups' ideas because they move so slowly. Because to make a decision, it takes such a long time to get to where they want to be. And then on the other hand, because of the wall that they have signed onto the terms with corporates, it's hard for them to get accessed into the corporate side of things, right? So essentially where we are looking at is it comes down to imposter syndrome and information asymmetry. And, founders see it as giant corporation, assume that they're a weaker party, but if that corporate is investing, it's because they need what the startup has. So you're kind of debunking these myths right now, which is pretty good. And I think it's also a bit like dating, right? If you go in desperate, you'll accept terrible terms. And if you go in knowing your worth, confidence, you can create genuine partnerships. That's when I guess the trust really builds up. And honestly, this reminds me of how Reid Hoffman talks about building relationships in Silicon Valley. It's about mutual value creation, like you said, not power dynamics. And I think this rings true again, not just within friendships, relationships, or even corporate partnerships. It's pretty much everywhere across the board. And now let's talk about what makes Southeast Asia unique in this space. You mentioned earlier that Thailand is becoming a real CVC hub, right? Great. And which honestly surprises a lot of people who still think Singapore is the only game in town. What's driving the shift? Finally, someone's rooting for Thailand. Let's see.
So, yeah, according to many reports,
Yeah.
so and according to reality, it's
Yes.
so,
That is reality, right? Something about
yeah. So most of the money in venture capital comes from corporates in Thailand,
Okay.
particularly. So, and there's many reasons why. And as for Singapore, yeah, still the regional largest hub
Yeah.
for many funds, and
Yeah.
Singapore is number one in terms of amount of deals and amount of funds. It has incredibly supported by government as well. Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia still on their way to the top ranks. So, however, these markets obviously developing rapidly. So, and I could mention that Vietnam as well, that's also booming. And if I look at different sectors in Thailand, I can mention a few examples that I had recently at TechSouth Summit
Yeah.
1 month ago.
See.
So banks, K-Bank, CBX, Krungsifinaway, they presented a lot of dozens of different internal projects, product that they have developed in the last year to make user experience more seamless, more fast, and so on and so forth. Also, retail sector, Lotus CP Group, Lotus Macro also shared wonderful cases. Also energy companies. So in Thailand, like Bigrim and Banpu. So I really admire what they achieved so far and their approach of corporate innovation. So, and that's a really great example of how Silicon Valley approach and best local practices, local context could be mixed together for real tangible results.
Happens, right, when you combine them. And like I said, you've seen deals where CVC co-invests with the corporates here and the startups here, and the startup gets the best of both worlds. That's the future right here, and it's not about East versus West, right? It's about integrated global innovation networks. And I think this ties into something important about how we think about competitive advantage in the modern world. And in terms of getting specific about where this money is actually flowing, and like I said, Singapore is still the hub, but the neighboring countries are catching up. And I read recently that the AI startups have captured about 37% of all CVC-backed funding globally. Are we seeing similar patterns here in Southeast Asia, you think? Because that's what, like you were mentioning earlier, when you were at the Texas Summit, you were saying that AI startups are coming up quick, and are corporates focusing on different opportunities then?
So AI is absolutely a new buzzword
Yeah.
today, and Southeast Asia as well. So not an exception. And corporate VCs here, of course, very careful on this topic and chasing different interesting companies as well. So, by the way, Thailand last year introduced its own LLM, so large language
Yeah.
model for Thai language. So that is backed by one of the largest banks. The project,
The
um,
project I like.
Typhoon.
Whoa.
Typhoon.
Yeah.
Yes, Typhoon, the name of this
Okay. Wow.
Typhoon. So that's it. So yes, of course, AI is all of this agentic stuff and language models. So of course, corporate follow this trend and trying to adopt different cutting edge technologies around AI. The most interesting cases that I've seen uh, came from telco, uh, e-commerce platforms, and retail sector, and connected with operational efficiency. Let it be AI for operational efficiency. Like, for example, call centers, warehouses, matchmaking, and so on and so forth.
That's crazy. I mean, the way they're doing it. And so Thailand has its own version of, literally, no pun intended, AI being a typhoon, taking up stuff in Thailand. Wow. It's like they're playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers again. And honestly, this reminds me of how um, Warren Buffett just doesn't buy stocks. He buys pieces of an interconnected business empire. It's very similar to that one, how things are playing together. And here's something I'm really curious about. When traditional VCs and corporate VCs co-invest, what's that dynamic actually like? Is it collaborative, or is there tension between control and vision? Because on one hand, traditional VCs can get all creative and loud, and just they want to do what they want to do, whereas corporates are like, okay, we have steps to follow. What is that like? How do you join creativity and structure?
Oh, a really tough question. Great question. It's involved. When we're talking about like different models, there are different types of collaborations, mechanics, outputs, matchmaking platforms, intelligence search tools, passive or active venture capital arms, with consulting firms as well.
Yeah.
So different tools that help navigate this landscape and mm, really effective collaboration frameworks are underlooked most of the times. So, and when I started to work with client or corporate venture team, I always suggest to have 5 elements in a focus. First one is strategy. So, what's our mission? So, what's our vision? How we wanna be presented on the venture market. So, what's our principles? What's our alignment core leadership team? So, second one is people. So, do we hire right people with the right mindset, with the right background to run all of these innovation activities? How we recognize what's the skill set that they required? How we upskill them? So, very interesting questions. Um, third pillar is formal structure. organization. So how we should make our fund structured, how we can connect our firm to the networks in the VC world. So then fourth is operation. What process should be inside, method, tools, decision-making mechanics, the cadence, speed, etc. And the fifth element, the last but not least, is a metrics. So how we measure the performance, how we do reporting, etc. So, and in case all of these five elements are well developed, I think it could lead to a really meaningful collaboration activities. And yeah, we've seen a lot of great examples here in Thailand and in other countries when this approach implemented,
Yeah.
they could have a really tangible results.
Yeah. It sounds to me like as you were describing the five elements, I was just thinking about a few dances. Like, was it ballroom dance? Was it tango dance? Was it any other dance? Because it seems like it had all the five elements as well. And it's more like towards competitive dance, and it kind of makes sense because you're talking about competing on a international scale. And if you just think about that, I think that's how you kind of get the flow going about how it relates to dances. So you have the vision. So two people have to have the same big picture about how they want this dance to be in. The people, do they have dancing background? And then the third one was what again? Sorry, the third one. The third one was sorry. The fourth one was organization. The fifth one was metrics. The third one was
So strategy, people, organization, operational, and metrics.
yeah. So organization, they organize each other when they dance, and then after that would be operational. So how do they actually dance and put that into practice? And then the last one would be metrics. How did you perform at the end? So it's kind of looks like a real dance to me. I was just thinking about it, how it all connects the dots. But anyway, again, I'm drifting off a bit, and let's not get me drifting off. Let's come back to Pavel again because he's the main guest star of the show. So let's get personal for a bit. Your journey is fascinating. Russian engineer, that itself is interesting. To startup accelerator director, to PwC's venture program, to Cornell, and now advising across Southeast Asia. What drove these transitions? I'm sure people who have heard that you've shared your expertise here, but I think just shed some light about who you are as a person. At the end of the day, we are all human beings. So let us know, who is Pavel?
Thanks for that question.
Ah.
So actually, I have a very traditional computer science education. So I graduated from very traditional faculty, and I had to grow to the idea that most of issues and problems I faced during my engineering career was connected with the people side of business, so with the project management side, marketing, um, people management questions, and so on and so forth. And that's why turn switched more business related tasks, business related projects, and I joined a venture firm. So we organized a lot of startup events, accelerators across European countries. And I witnessed a lot of founders and their transforming ideas, and the venture capital sector became really attractive. So, and another reason why I'm here, so why I joined this career path, because so venture capital may be one of the tools how to predict the future, how to know what happened in 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 100 years. So, yeah. And so after moving to Southeast Asia, uh, two adventures, um, so I had a privilege and pleasure to experience two adventures. So venture capital and being across Southeast Asian countries. Yeah, so that's my
Decided to end your way here.
yeah.
Okay, that's a good way to put it. And how long has it been that you've been in Southeast Asia now?
3 years, 3 years for now.
Okay, that's a pretty good time to be in. And like you were saying, you got the best two ventures, like personal and also corporate. And how has it been for you on a personal level? I want to get to know a bit of well.
So challenging. So that's a new experience for me, and I try to bring my knowledge, my experience, and to the new advisory projects as well. So and I see that I can bring value to corporates, to startups teams as well, especially when it comes to bridging two worlds, like Europe, US, Southeast Asia. So, and I currently try to help founders and corporates to navigate all of this complexity in a safe way,
Yeah.
with integrity and with a high level of trust.
I'm hearing that you're trying to bring over whatever you learned from corporate to integrate it in your life in some way or another. And but what keeps you grounded? Like can totally I'm aligned with you on how being venture capital means you're at the forefront of technology. But sometimes when you're in the thick of VC, things can get a bit idealistic, right? Things get a bit too far ahead, like 50 years, 30 years, 50 years, 100 years. What keeps you grounded? I imagine it's easy to get caught up with all the hype and the big numbers.
I think it's more philosophical question, not practical. I would say that so my natural curiosity, let it be. So my natural curiosity um, give me an opportunity to stay humble uh, around all of this hype, and uh, I've seen a lot of startup stories, failed stories. Like 90% of them are failed stories, 10% success stories, and uh, all of these stories taught me a lot about passion, about right timing, about importance of deep understanding of stakeholders, right project and product management techniques. To be honest, all of these let me stay curious about venture capital. So I'm really passionate about working with founders and what will happen in like next 5 or 10 years, and that's make me wake up in the morning.
I don't know whether this is for you, but I think ultimately is how you feel about it in a way that being in VC, not only does it mean that you're the forefront of tech, you're also working a lot with founders. And that means that you have a lot of empathy for that. And I think being in a founder-led industry as well means that you're more open to authenticity. You're more open to what failures are. And it's a very human experience. At least that's my perspective about how being in VC has been for me. I find it very grounding. I find it very humbling to a certain extent. I think what you just said as well, you talk about authenticity often comes from vulnerability and being willing to admit that when things don't work, which is primarily how founders do, because things don't always work the first time. And honestly, that failure stories probably taught you more about corporate startup dynamics than it doesn't successful projects. And that's really true because I feel that same way as well. Even coming up with this podcast as well, there's always one way to solve a problem. It's not, there's always 10,000 ways. Not one way. Sorry. Totally aligned with that mindset. And I really appreciate you coming on, especially with this kind of mindset. And the more curious we are, I think the more conversations like this will happen, the more authenticity will come in. Okay, let's just do some rapid fire. I'm going to throw a few questions at you. Most underrated opportunity.
climate tech and energy tech in Southeast Asia as well.
Okay, so climate and energy. That's a climate in Thailand right now. I'm just kidding. Anyway, so one piece of advice for founders considering corporate money. Okay.
Find the right stakeholder.
What's your favorite failure that taught you something? This is humanizing part.
The favorite failure that taught me something. Good numbers is not enough. So good presentation sometimes is better than just good numbers.
Speaking of the next 5 years, let's paint a picture of what success looks like. Like we're having this conversation in 2030. What do you have changed about corporate venture in Southeast Asia?
Well, I hope we'll see more big exits and IPOs since that's a really good traction. So as far as I remember, 5 unicorns currently in Thailand. Okay, from 5 that came from Thailand. Yeah. So I hope we'll see more major acquisitions as well, where corporate investors played a crucial role for an early stage startup, etc. I hope we'll see more Thai founders and founders from other countries, from other Southeast Asian countries that succeed in US, Silicon Valley, and other parts of the world as well. And also,
oh, hey, that's one idea.
And sell for the corporate. And yeah.
I'm with you on that one. No, seriously. No, I'm not kidding. Sorry, I'm kidding in the way I'm saying it, but I'm serious about the content of it. Okay, that's a good distinction to have.
but this example where someone can have a real value to
I'm still looking at someone who has real value, who is a factor for a lot of reasons right across me right now. So, it's true. Anyway, one more thing. Here's my final question before we press stop. If you could give one piece of life advice to young professionals who want to have the kind of impact you're having, what would that be?
Continue learning something new. Continuous learning is good stuff.
And stay curious.
And stay curious. Yeah.
Perfect. And wow. And the idea of being like what you've done so far, the idea of being translated between 2 worlds, I think that's exactly what the innovation economy needs more of. So Pavel, this has been absolutely fantastic. I feel like covered a lot of corporate psychology to founder strategy to regional values with some great personal insights along the way. Thank you for sharing and being of yourself. I think that's important to be here. And for listeners who want to dive deeper into this space, what should they be reading, watching, or following?
I would say so actually I can't name the very specific source. So yeah.
Okay, so great. So if you're looking for that, please my LinkedIn, Pavel Veselovsky, and I highly recommend it furniture and staging. It can be found in any new conferences in Southeast Asia. He'll be there. We saw him in Penang. There's a high chance he'll be in Thailand. I don't know when it's going to be, but stay tuned to him through LinkedIn. And before we wrap up, I want to leave you with this thought. Corporate venture capital isn't just about big companies writing checks to startups. It's about fundamentally reimagining how innovation happens when you combine corporate resources with startup agility. And here in Southeast Asia, we are not just copying Silicon Valley playbooks like Pavel said earlier. It's refreshing to hear that. And we are writing our own. So whether you're a founder considering corporate investors or corporate executive thinking about venture strategy, or just someone fascinated by how innovation actually spreads through economies, I hope this conversation gave you some new frameworks to think with. Or reach out to Pavel. He's happy to connect. He's a connector of all worlds anyway, right? So thank you again, Pavel, for your time and for welcoming me to Bangkok. It's been such a pleasure being here with you. And it has been a blast. And if anyone wants to continue this conversation over Laksa, hit us up. We'll see you in Penang. And that's a wrap on this episode. I'm Kim, and remember, in a world full of noise, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is just be real about what's actually working. Until next time, keep building, keep questioning, and keep it unfiltered. That's it.
Thank you.
ขอบคุณค่ะสวัสดีค่ะ
Khop-
ขอบคุณค่ะขอบคุณค่ะ Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Look, here's the thing. Innovation isn't just about speed or strategy decks. It's about trust again. The invisible kind, the kind that you feel in the room before a term sheet is signed, or maybe the safety that you feel when you're with a loved one. That's trust too. An unwavering silence, that something that you can feel safe in, is what I'm saying. One yes can open doors that you didn't know even existed. And on the other hand, one no from the wrong person at the wrong time can kill the dream before it even starts. Now that's a dance between corporates and startups. And it's not always elegant, but when it works, it's electric, or rather electrifying. If this episode gave you something to chew on, tag a friend, send it to that one exec who always says, we should do more with startups. Or just share it with someone curious like you. Maybe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and LinkedIn, and YouTube too. And just a quick heads up, everything shared here is for informational purposes only. Please don't treat this as a financial and investment advice. You know the drill. It's not. We're just talking. Hanging out. Just two of us hanging out. That's it. I'm Kim, and this is the Sea of Startups. And in a world chasing the next unicorn, maybe being real is the only age that matters. See you in the next one.